Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast. My name is David,
Craig 5 standing by.
and this is where we talk all things Star Wars. And I'd like to wish Craig 5 publicly a very happy birthday. How was your birthday, Craig?
It was good. It was just an enjoyable day. I just got back from vacation last night, so it was kind of a relaxing day today. We went out to dinner, but we were gone for a week, so
Awesome.
when you come back from vacation, you're kind of tired from the vacation.
I know the feeling, man. You always need a vacation from the vacation. Yeah, it's like you never really went
That's
on
how I
vacation.
feel.
Yeah, it's way different as an adult in comparison to when you're a kid. Don't get me started. So before we get started here, though, on talking about all things spoilers on the Acolyte episode 6, I hope everyone that's watching us has just seen it, just experienced it, and has a lot to say in the comments. If you're in the comments for YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, feel free to type in what your thoughts are, what your
Yep.
questions are. Everyone else can kind of see them, and we can all kind of collaborate on it. But before we get started, I do want to thank our awesome supporters out there. Our top tier Patreon supporters are Hayden Hauser, Darth Ace One, Liam McCallan, Chris Simpson, Kevin Leininger, Deb McCaffrey, Drew Peters, Zach Netzel, Fenrir526, Maya Morris, Maka Talatala, and Adam Hayward. Thank you so much for your awesome love and support out there. So before we get started, I just want
Wait
to
a
give a
minute, David. How
spoiler
can they
warning.
support us on Patreon if they'd like to do that?
How can they support us?
Yeah, what do
They
they
can
do? They
All they
just
have
go.
to do is go to patreon.com and they can just type in Star Wars Stuff Podcast. Our official handle, I guess you could say, on Patreon is at Star Wars Stuff Podcast 2187. So you can find us there. You can donate anything per month, really. I mean, or you can join as a free member. There's a lot of free members that join that kind of follow us. We don't do a lot of free content per se, but there's a lot of you basically get our podcast ad free on Patreon. So every single podcast that we do publicly, you can listen to it on the Patreon app ad free. So you don't have to deal with any of that.
You know what we need? We need one of those commercials where it's like we're playing Arms of an Angel in the background, and it's like David like not being able to pay for the power to record the audio. Like in the arms of an angel. Colin is weeping in the background.
Yeah. So
Matt
so yeah,
knows
essentially
something.
yeah, so essentially what the Patreon does is it helps pay for us to go to conventions, for any type of ancillary thing, for equipment upgrades, upkeep. We have to pay for StreamYard. We have the professional level for StreamYard. It's like $500 a year. We pay for that. We pay for our web hosting,
It
for our
helps.
website. Yeah, I mean, it's
Really?
just kind of the extra money that kind of gives us that extra boost. And when we make our swag too, we're going to Japan. We're gonna need all the help we can get. Um, so yeah,
I'm
that's
not
really what it goes
prepared to
to.
beg, but David is. David might be. Are you prepared to beg yet?
Maybe not,
We're
but
we're
I don't
close.
want to beg anyone
We're
because, of
close.
course, I mean, everyone's financial situation is different. And of course, if you don't have the money to spare, by all means, do not donate. Um, you could always help out the podcast by commenting on YouTube, Twitter,
Or
Facebook
a
while we're
five
doing it.
star review.
Yeah, that would help as
Even
well.
that would help.
There's been some very interesting reviews.
Really?
So yes, maybe even by someone on this podcast here. So
Wait a minute. I deleted that.
So TJ is in the house on YouTube. So thanks TJ for joining us. He says, "Hope you guys are all well. I've not watched the episode yet. Was it any good?"
Didn't he do this to this last week?
He did this to us last week too.
He doesn't know when the actual show is on, but he watches the podcast
Yeah,
when we're talking about it.
yeah.
Can I just say I was extremely frustrated with today's episode. I wanted to smash my head into the TV because I am so frustrated. They couldn't have made this episode 5 minutes longer, and come on, it was just. I know they like to do cliffhangers and stuff, but this was just frustrating for me. This to me was the worst episode because of that frustration. I was just so frustrated that again they're making us wait to hear what happened on Brendock. It's like, oh come on, guys, just say it.
I think the big frustration with me is just the show length. They don't have enough time to do a lot of stuff. Oh, and look who we have here. It's Colin. Nice of you to join us.
And Craig, you got anger issues, man. You need to chill. It like wasn't that bad. It was not that bad. So I'm not sure where is that coming from. I understand of the cliffhanger and stuff, but honestly, I was just telling this to Brooke of my wife, where it was just like, I think from episode 5 until the end, I think it's going to be like plot, and it's just going to keep going forward, because I like this episode. We actually got more questions than answers in my opinion in this, but that's good, because I feel like by the end of this, we are going to get a lot of those answers. Also, Craig, happy birthday. You're what, like 80, like 90, like what?
For 900 years old, you reach. Look as good you will not.
Yeah, dude. Happy birthday, man. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I already see the memes happening. Especially the part of where he's walking into the water and he takes his clothes off. I was like, that is just going to be a meme right there, because no one was expecting that. Yeah. I was just like, oh, okay, interesting. An interesting choice, but we'll see. But yeah, no, I thought that was funny, but I loved how we finally got the lightsaber whip. Soul was very suspicious. He's pretty sus. And I know that next episode, is just going to be the flashback episode. Like, that one is going to be the one where we actually get the actual point of view. I think, or do you guys think maybe it's just going to be like Soul's point of view, just like how in episode 3 it was May and Osha's point of view?
I think there's going to be the Rashomon thing in full effect. I think we're going to get Soul's point of view.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Soul looks very, very suspicious, man. I mean, I think he's kind of in the know somehow. I mean, I don't think he's as naive and as weak in the Force that he can't sense certain things. I think we might get a big reveal that he knew what was going on the whole kind of time there, and we might get that whole Rashomon effect where we see it through his eyes and his like scheming and planning. He definitely feels like he's not an honorable Jedi at this point.
No, and the big thing is that after I thought like he stunned May, I was like, oh, okay, he's gonna wait, but he was like, nope, I'm going to hyperspace, I'm going somewhere else. So he's got his own agenda, and I think we're gonna see like the real side of Soul in this next flashback episode. Just because of there's a lot to still cover. But also something that I wasn't able to say on the pre-show because I wasn't here for it. But last week, which we talked about it like briefly, and more people are talking about it now, but they played the Kylo Ren theme a couple of times. And
they also had a little bit of the music from like The Cave, I think.
Yeah. And so my
Green
guess,
Lady Apprentice. Sorry, I was thinking that Kamir might be the Green Valestre's apprentice too.
That would be really, really interesting. But I'm thinking maybe that meant he got stabbed by, potentially Darth Plagueis.
Well, see, here's the thing: when you see like scars on the back like that, you think whip.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I was waiting for Colin to make his point, but I was thinking the same thing.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. No. I again, there's so much to cover. Also, do you guys think the unknown planet is Octo? Because as soon as I saw it, I was like, that just has to be a different island. And I know some people are going to be like, well, there were no porgs. And I was like, well, yeah, but there's probably more than just porgs of creatures that are on that planet.
Yeah, like those little creatures look like they're going to become the big Thela sirens, I believe they're called, where Luke is milking them.
Dude, no, seriously, man. I am thinking that there's going to be And that also
if that's
makes
the
it.
case, I hope they step on those things.
Oh, come on. No, but no, I really think that like the island was just so similar to what we saw in Octo. The whole planet is very similar. I got the same vibe, and the caves and everything are very similar to what they had there. It just makes sense that it would be Octo. And I'm curious of why they said unknown planet. We'll probably maybe learn maybe by the end of the season of they'll be like it's Octo, which that would make it even more like, interesting, because that was the first Jedi temple that was on that planet. As far as we know, when Luke went to it and where he was in The Last Jedi. So I'm really curious of where that's gonna go.
The other
But
thing that popped out to me in the episode is the way Kermir said it was a long time ago. It felt like maybe he's very, very, very old. And Valestre, that's her name, right?
Yeah.
She's very, very, very old.
Yes,
We
she is
got
also old
papers
too.
on his
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. I also saw, so some people were seeing it as like she was concerned for Saul, but I think that she was, maybe she also feels some guilt too, and I think she senses on who it is after everything happened. And I think you're right. Those marks on his back do look like a whip mark. So, but just with the lightsaber. And then maybe she thought that he did die, and then he was left for dead. And then that's when all of these kind of timelines are just gonna come together. So I think Saul and her are kind of on the same level of where they feel guilty, but at the same time they have moved on past that guilt. And I also love how the show is making the Jedi early on, like very early on, where we're not in the prequels of where it's just like the Jedi are corrupt. And that's really,
I don't
that's
think they're necessarily corrupt. I think
not
it's
all
more
of
like
them.
no, it feels more like because of the politics that they're
Yeah.
constantly feeling the pressure from, they're not able to separate who they authentically would like to be because of the pressure of the politicians on them. It feels like they're being politicized, right? Like,
Yeah.
so maybe that's like they're having to cover things up and they can't talk to the council because the council will have to tell the senators, and the senators have the corruption, and the senators are going against the Jedi. You see what I mean? So it doesn't
Right.
feel much as corrupt as that the pressure is making them do things that they wouldn't naturally do if they weren't in that kind of state.
So it's like the early stages of what we eventually see happen in the prequels, like in episode 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. All
Feels
right.
like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really love how this series kind of sheds light on the fact that that Jedi are not perfect, and we've seen in Star Wars movies that especially The Last Jedi that Craig hasn't seen multiple times, but they talk about like the hubris of the Jedi, how they thought they were just impervious, how they were like kind of like
Yeah.
above everything and superior, and this kind of sheds light on that whole thing too. It's like be aware of who's in charge. I mean,
Right.
it's kind of the old adage there that you gotta keep the government or the people that are in charge in check. And
Yeah. And we have a comment here from Perp of where they actually do have a good point. Remember in episode 2 where Veenstra tells Saul to mind the Jedi's reputation and like kind of keep things on the down low. Like that's a sign right there, as well as like they're at that point where they are worried of what people think of the Jedi and what could happen if the public found out about this and stuff. And so no, it's really interesting because my mindset for the show when it launched was we were kind of staying away from the whole politics thing of where it would be where they weren't corrupt by the Senate and all that stuff, of where they had to feel like they had to hide things. I thought it was going to be like, the High Republic era, like of what we have in the books, of where they are mainly focused on the troubles that are happening in the galaxy, and they are keepers of the peace, and that was their main focus. But in the show, I guess now it makes sense because they are closer to the prequel era of where they are to that point of where they are kind of fearful of what would happen if certain people found out if a Sith Lord existed and stuff like that. And that's what happens in the prequels. So it's really interesting that we are kind of already at that point in Acolyte and during the High Republic era. So
yeah, it'll certainly be interesting to see how the series play, or at least the season plays out. And I really enjoyed the show so far. A lot of different aspects of it. I just was very frustrated because I knew they weren't going to say what was going to happen. I just want to hear a taste of it, something, because it's been so frustrating that it feels like it's been dragged out. This was Game of Thrones. It would have happened. You would have found out on the first or the second episode, but it just felt like they were dragging it out. And it's like, come on, just tell us something here. That was my only problem with the episode.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Did anybody else get frustrated watching this?
So with me for the Acolyte, I don't get frustrated with it because I mean, time for me is going by quick anyways. I'm doing so many other things. It's not like I'm just like sitting and just waiting for the next episode.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of just putting it after we do the post-show, pre-show breakdown. It's kind of like, okay, time. I mean, this Tuesday got here really quick anyways. And I mean, just time for me goes by really quick in comparison to when I was a little kid. When I was a little kid, time took forever. But now it's like, I know that, I mean, I've seen all the interviews. I've seen Leslie Headland. I've read articles. That one article you sent me today, Craig, was really good. She talks about how we're going to get a lot more lightsaber action in the future, which is great. I mean, I'm anticipating it. I think the only thing that I still have an issue with is the show length. It needs to be an hour long. I mean, this is Disney. This is Lucasfilm. They need to make hour-long episodes. I mean, it just needs
like 45 minutes or something.
Yeah, like it makes really no sense. But that's what they're choosing to do. I think that's the last real thing the real big thing that really should probably change. But I mean, when you think about it, it's long-form movies that we're getting, and they're chopping them up into segments. And I think that's why maybe it feels disjointed to a lot of viewers. But I mean, I'm enjoying it. I like it. I mean, they're adding to the lore, and I could totally see myself if I had the chance to make a series. I would kind of shed light on like corrupted Jedi. I mean, Jedi aren't perfect. I mean, there's going to be some bad eggs in there.
Yeah,
right.
I think this series is kind of like doing that. It's bringing like the realism of our reality into the Star Wars lore.
All right, so I think the most interesting aspect was watching Chimera with Osha trying to seduce her or get her to hear his side towards things.
Yeah, and like join him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it sounds like he's still really heavy on finding a pupil, and if it's not May, then it's going to be Osha. But I also find it interesting, and honestly, I'm going to say I'm one of those people, but I'm starting to really enjoy Chimera's character. He's very interesting, and the way that he approaches these conversations is very strategic, and then he's also kind of showing his cards of being like, I'm ready to die. I really don't care at this point if something happens to me. But at the same time, you know, he has a mission. So it's really interesting of the angle that he's going at this. And he's also kind of got like that, you know, Dark Lord Sith approach to it, kind of like Palpatine had with Anakin. But I think
I like it.
Yeah. So,
I mean, if you're not adding complexities to these characters and it's just they're pure evil or whatnot, it doesn't make it so interesting, you know? So I like the complexity of where they're going with him.
Yeah, I agree. So here's hoping, you know, we continue down this great path with you know, these great plot points, and we just keep moving forward.
All right, I got a question for you guys. when OSHA had the lightsaber, did anybody else think she was gonna go to like light it, like she was gonna kill him, and then there would be like no crystal in there or something? Because I was thinking he might have like you were ready to turn, like trying to get her to turn.
That would have been pretty good, Craig, if that would have
Yeah.
happened. If you could hear like the short out noise, like you hear at the
Yeah.
with the Galaxy Edge lightsabers when there's no blade.
Like
That'd be cool.
she was ready to, and she was gonna do it in the rage, and then all of a sudden there is no crystal to do it.
Right. I was thinking that too, just because of he would be able to call her bluff or not. I mean, we've seen that in so many like different, different movies and shows of where the person that like has the gun just kind of leaves it there to kind of test the waters and see what the person does.
True.
And then they would pull out the gun and try and shoot, and then the person that is like being aimed at would be like, it's not loaded. I called your bluff. And they actually did that in the Clone Wars, of where they actually where Captain Rex left his E11 down, and he was kind of talking to Cody and stuff, and then the clone Slick jumps down, takes a blaster, tries shooting him, and then Captain Rex is like, it's not, hey Slick, it's not loaded, and then Cody comes up and ambushes him. So that would have been pretty cool to see. I was kind of having the same mindset as you too. I didn't think that there was a crystal in there. So when she actually turned it on, I was like, oh, okay. Something that we haven't talked about yet, which I'm really interested of what people are especially people like our friend Hunter is going to think about. Pip is now evil Pip, or is it like
back to factory settings?
Right. I was just thinking about C-3PO in Rise of Skywalker, of where like they kind of set him to like that like kind of stage of where he was reading like the Sith stuff because of Pip's eyes quotations went red. So I was like, oh, okay. So he's just kind of, evil Pip, but at the same time not, because he's just at factory settings. But yeah. So is the original Pip gone? Did OSHA back up his hard drive and memory? Like what happened?
Yep. No. Everyone, that's a great piece of advice there, Colin. I work in that industry, and yes, always back up your stuff. Always have redundancy.
No.
That's what my day job has taught me. We got a really good look at Kymir's lightsaber as well.
Yeah.
And it looks pretty nice. I do like it. It's got like a black sheen to it. The more we visit Kymir, and this was a big time Kymir episode, I'm really digging this character, man. His fighting style, the helmet. I actually pre-ordered the helmet on Hasbro Pulse the other day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's
see anything out of that thing. The eye slits are like
right. So it's almost like a callback to when like young Padawans and when Luke put on the blaster helmet and just used the Force to actually attack, which just makes him like a whole lot more cooler and a lot more like a harder of like a Force user, man. I really like that aspect. So okay, what was John Candy's character's name in Spaceballs?
Barf.
Yeah.
But his species was a what?
I don't know.
I think it was a Mog, right? Half man, half dog.
Yeah, Mog, yeah.
There's a character in this episode named Mog. I think that was a reference back to Spaceballs.
And boy, Mog
Sorry.
really felt like a politician's like
nepotism
like
all the way.
Yeah.
like a what would you say, like a politician's assistant or something?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what he really felt like. He didn't feel like a Jedi. He felt like he should be helping his candidate.
Yeah, almost kind of like butlerish in a way.
Yeah, it was a weird vibe.
Yeah.
Going back to the helmet, I wanted to talk about how OSHA put the helmet on and she couldn't see outside the helmet.
Right.
That also, to me, like builds up of how powerful Kymir is, because that means that he could barely see during that fight, and that's how powerful he is with the Force, which is insane. So I hope by the end of the season we get an explanation of how he became so powerful. and what he learned. I like my theory that I said it in our last episode that we recorded last week, which was maybe he found a Sith holocron, maybe he went to Morben or Korben and he learned something about the Sith, and maybe he's had some contact from the beyond, from like Darth Bane or like Darth Malik or even Darth Raven, like in some way. Just because of you cannot, like, if you're fighting with a helmet like that and you can't see outside of it, like, you've got to be strong as hell with the Force. And I also love how we learn more about the Jedi being trained because of the small youngling helmets that we first see in Attack of the Clones. I believe those are the helmets that Chimera was talking about, had that same material, which is interesting, which adds more lore. Yeah. So I think that's super, super cool.
All right. So I think the article that I sent you, David, mentioned that there's going to be another Sith in this series, right?
Right. So there's an article that Craig sent me today that it's a really good read, and I'll bring it up here. But for some reason it's not coming up.
So,
but anyways, yeah, in this article,
guys,
it does state that there is something of Sith, two Sith. So I guess the rule of two is in play here. So Sith plural. But the question is, have we already seen them?
Well,
You know
that's like, what do you think? Do you think it's going to be somebody we haven't seen yet, or is it going to be like a surprise that, or maybe it's implying that Osha is going to become a Sith? I don't know. That's a possibility too, I suppose.
I don't know. I mean, it would just be wild speculation on my part. I mean, we can make educated guesses here, but I mean, I'm hoping.
How about uneducated guesses? Let's do those.
Uneducated guesses. So, I mean, I've been hoping all along this has something to do with Plagueis. I'm hoping Plagueis gets weaved into this story somehow, some way, even if it's just a mention that he was that, or maybe he's coming up, or he's out there. If there's an end credits where he's there, and we kind of see a hint towards them in the future, maybe a season 2.
You can't mention the Sith. You can't have the Sith involved at this point in time if you don't have Darth Plagueis involved in some way, because this show is canon, is leading into the prequels. Darth Plagueis was a real person that was involved in Star Wars. Yes, we haven't seen him physically, but we know that he was the master of Palpatine. So we know we're gonna get there at some point. But how? We don't know. This show could lead into
it. We can't rule out Chimera for being Darth Plagueis.
That's true. I'm just hoping that it's not. I really hope it's not.
Yeah, I would be a little bit weird, but he did say it happened a long time ago, implying that he was very old. Right?
Well,
that's an interesting factoid.
Yes, but also you have to think that, a long time ago could be, I mean, for example, I was born 28 years ago. Is that considered a long time ago?
I mean, but yeah.
Well, I think it was in reference to the actual like Padawan relationship with.
Right.
But I mean,
that in human years, saying that, and because as far as we know, Chimera's, he's human. So.
No. Do we know how old Valestre is?
She's over 100. She was her first appearance was in a High Republic book that took place about 200 years before the events of the prequels. So at this point, she's pretty old because she was only a kid then.
So I mean, just wild speculation, but what if she was Chimera's master a long, long time ago?
I don't think that's a suspicion. I think it's, I honestly think that is going to be like a spot on thing. It's just because of the marks on his back. You're right. They do look like lightsaber whips. Maybe she fell down the same path as Luke, or something like that. Like in The Last Jedi, of where you know what, here's another time to The Last Jedi, of where Luke sensed, you know, of all the bad things that could possibly happen with Ben, and then he was just about to go and kill him, but then he stopped because, you know, he's like, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm a Jedi, I can't be doing this. And maybe she didn't have that instinct, and she was just like, I sense the bad in you, I'm gonna kill you off. And that's what she ended up doing. Like, there are so many possibilities. Or maybe he was like, I don't want to be a Jedi anymore, I see, you know, I see a different point of view, you know, join me, like, you know, let's both go to the dark side. And then, like, she, you know, kills him and leaves him for dead, but she doesn't tell anyone, because she doesn't want everyone to know that, you know, there could have been a Sith, or like he was trying to, you know, go towards the dark side. But yeah.
Well, so
So
do you
many
think next week we'll see a flashback episode? I guess it'll probably lead into the flashback, right? Kind of like they did on that episode 3.
I think that we are, just because of the way that we left with Saul talking to May, was like, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to tell you what happened, and you are going to listen. And then the screen goes black.
What if
I
he
think
just tickles her in the next episode and keeps tickling her?
okay.
To me, that would still be better than Last Jedi. I'll say that right now.
just let it go, man. Just let it go. Jeez.
Never.
But yeah, no, I think I think we will definitely be getting the
I hope
flashback
so.
episodes.
I
I'm gonna freak out as soon as we see Kelnaka finally using his lightsaber. I've been waiting all season for this. I've seen it in the trailers, but we haven't seen it, you know, in full action. So I can't wait to see what happens. But in the trailer, it does look like Kelnaka is fighting Soul. So I'm really curious of what's
just fighting Torben. No,
it was Torben. I think it was Torben.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like right in front of him, and he like flies in and like.
well, okay.
Or you saw something different.
I couldn't see his face, but he had a blue lightsaber. Does Torben have a blue lightsaber?
I don't remember.
I just remember the blonde-headed.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't see the face. I like only saw like the Jedi robes, which I assumed was Saul. But if it's Torben, that makes sense because he was possessed before. So maybe they possess him and then he, you know, turns against them, you know, in that capacity. And I think when they were on the ship, we actually at the end of episode 3 of where Saul is talking to, you know, young Osha. If you look in the background, you see Torben have that scar already on his face. Like, you like really have to zoom in the background to see it. So something's going down in that fight. Something is going to make the band break up and they all go their separate ways, of where they all go into exile in some way. So except Soul, I guess. But yeah, I am
the original. What was her name? The first Jedi was killed. What was her name again?
Indara.
Master Indara. Indara. Yeah. Indara. Yeah.
Was she like, had she disappeared from the Order or whatnot? I thought she was just a station on that planet or something.
I believe she was stationed on that planet, but I think it was like her own form of exile, of where like she was just kind of like she was part of the Jedi Order, but she was, you know, doing her own thing. That's what Torben was doing too. He was still a Jedi, but he was in that temple, and then he was in full meditation. But that was his own form of going into exile. And he was kind of punishing himself. And I think that's what most of them were doing, including Kelnaka as well.
And it was interesting with Kelnaka, we saw all those like drawings on the inside of his space, whatever.
And
that looked like witch, like the yin and the yang and stuff like that.
Like he became obsessed.
Something that was really cool was that at the end of the second episode, of where Kelnaka walks up to his ship, you actually see like the writing, like that's on top.
Yeah.
That is one of the first times that we've seen the Wookiee alphabet, like of the Wookiee language, actually written somewhere. And I thought that was really, really cool, because I love Chewbacca and Wookiees and everything. So I was like, oh my god, finally! So
I didn't know that, Colin. You like Wookiees?
yeah, all the way. But yeah,
Even speaks the Shriwook.
mm-hmm. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
and I
no,
believe the sign that Kelnaka actually had in that Wookiee writing was "Keep out" or something.
yes,
like that. Yeah,
yes, it was.
yeah.
So cool.
So yeah, I have a picture here that I'm going to put up. It's a part of, I think, that Inverse article you sent me, Craig, on inverse.com. You can see it on screen here if you're watching this. It says, this is Leslie Headland talking, or actually the interviewer, and an interviewer and Leslie Headland. I would say about the final episodes, all the dots start connecting. The synapses start firing, especially after the switch between mentors for episode 6 and going into episode 7 and 8. There's more action. There's more lightsabers. It's got a lot of stuff that we've already had. But if there's anything different about the second half of the season, it's darker. It gets increasingly more emotional.
Yes. I kind of figured, and I'm pretty sure she's probably referring to the flashbacks. Something I was going to say, I forgot to get to the point that I was talking about when they play the Kylo Ren theme. I'm thinking that because of Leslie, actually, the director of the show, said that, I mean, like, of everything, she said that was intentional. There was a reason for that, and we will find out why. I think it's because that Chimere maybe might be the first Knight of Ren, because there have been different people who have donned that role of the Knight of Ren, like of the main knight. And you know, if Chimere is like the main founder of it and stuff, you know, that's a great way to incorporate the sequels and add more lore to that. And yeah, dude, no, I'm really starting to you know, even though he killed all the Jedi and Corbin and everything, Torben, I was just like, man, I'm really starting to really enjoy this character. He is corrupted, he's in pain, and I think we're going to find out more why by the end. Now, do you guys think that Osha's going to join him?
Yes and no.
Oh, that's a tough question.
I think she's
On the
going
fence.
to
Yeah.
maybe act like she's joining him, but then in the end, maybe kind of trick him in a way.
We've
Possibly.
just seen
The problem with that, David, is that there's only 2 episodes left. And Leslie did say that this season has a finality to it. Like,
right.
So, like, if there isn't a season 2, we feel like we got everything. So that would feel really open-ended. I mean, how would they, you know, go about that with 2 episodes left? It feels like that would take more time.
I mean, a lot of this kind of, I think hinges on Darth Plagueis, because only 2 there are. So is Plagueis born yet? Is he about to be born? Because he's going to have to come into play at some point, because this is very close to the Phantom Menace as far as the timeline goes. So he's eventually going to have to be one of the 2 at some point.
Or is Chimere Plagueis?
That's a possibility too. But like I said, Plagueis has to be involved somehow, just due to the timeline aspect of it all. So the big question is, where does he come into play? He has to come into play. Is it going to be a Coyote Money situation where he hasn't been born yet, and they kind of change that up, and they move his birth date to a different time,
Darth Plagueis
and they
pretty
change
old,
his
man.
species? Well, that's Legends.
Right.
That's not mainline canon, so they can change that very easily.
I don't know, man. I think Darth Plagueis being old just shows you how much he knows about the Sith and stuff like that. I'm thinking, so something else that would be really cool, and like that would maybe happen, is that like maybe Plagueis discovers Chimere or something, and he senses that he's a threat in some way, and he, like, you know, seeks him out, Chimere, senses his presence, and then Chimere's like, join me or something, and then Plagueis is like, no, I want you to join me or you die. And then Chimere's like, no, I'm not being anyone's pupil. They fight it out. He dies, but maybe when they're fighting, we don't know that he's Plagueis until like he takes off his cloak or something, and then we're like, oh my gosh, we know that figure. And then we don't get a confirmation until like the next season that it's Darth Plagueis or something like that. I don't know. The possibilities are endless. Either way, I'm excited.
Leave a comment. What do you guys think? Do you think Plagueis is going to show up in this series? If so, what do you think? Is it somebody we've seen already? Is it somebody we haven't seen yet? I mean, what do you guys think? Is Chimere Plagueis? I mean, I want to hear what the people think.
This is a popular theory by Musup Yoda on YouTube. Darth Plagueis at the end of the last episode kills Chimere.
Wait,
who? Kind of thought that one up. Darth Plagueis, at the end kills Chimere, and then we get the reveal of Plagueis, and then everyone's gonna want to get a season 2 of the Acolyte once that happens. Even the naysayers.
As soon as Darth Plagueis shows up, everyone's gonna be like, "This show is amazing! I love it so much. This is my new favorite show." That's exactly what's gonna happen, and then people from the very beginning of the show are gonna be like,
oh, "I always liked it."
Yeah.
So what Musup Yoda here on YouTube is saying, I disagree with. I don't think it's just going to be fan service. He says just to give some fan service. No, Plagueis is an instrumental and has to be a big time character.
That is
go back in time. Yeah,
that is going to be a big part of the plot. That's not something of where they're just going to be like, all right, you know what? I'm going to pick Darth Plagueis. I think that's a great choice. You know what? We're going to throw him in there. No, Darth Plagueis is going to be a huge plot point because this is leading into the prequels, where we know that the master of Palpatine was Plagueis. So that is going to be like the Sith Lord. So, if maybe Plagueis kills Chimere, if he doesn't, like, having Chimere as Darth Plagueis' apprentice would be really cool. Or maybe at this point, maybe Chimere was Darth Plagueis' apprentice, or maybe he is, but he's hiding the fact that that Chimere is hiding the fact that he's trying to find a pupil, a new apprentice, and maybe he's going to try and do what Palpatine eventually does. But then Plagueis, actually figures this out like before, and then he kills Chimere. I mean, I've got so many, gears turning on my head, but I can just I can see so many possibilities because there's so much that can happen leading up to the end of this season and leading up to the prequels. Like there is so much for us to, learn and find out and stuff. I'm so excited.
That's it. We're getting Matt Martin on the podcast. Craig, call him up. Bring him in.
Matt, hey, listen, I know we've had our issues, but
what issues? You just stop. God. Oh man. Chimere is Plagueis to the Chimere is a plague to the Jedi, deadly and unseen. Yeah, no. So when Master Veenstra showed up to like the crime scene, if you will, where all the Jedi are just laying there dead, did you notice how she really wasn't that surprised? I kind of got the vibe where like she didn't really look shocked. She was just like, "Oh, okay, so all right, I see what's going on." It could be her being a Jedi, just hiding her emotions. But
she could be like, "Oh, this is the handiwork of my former Padawan."
Yes, yeah. Because if you're stumbling on a scene like that and you're seeing, and you see maybe something similar to what your former apprentice has done in the past, I could see her trying to hide that as much as she can, because then the Jedi might be able to sense that and like be like, something, you're hiding something. So yeah, no, it's everything is gonna that final episode of Acolyte of this season is gonna be very interesting, because all of these kind of plot points are gonna, I believe all these plot points are gonna kind of mash together, and to where we'll see all of these different timelines kind of like blending in. But what's beautiful and about it is that I really can't predict what's going to happen just because of everything has been kind of unpredictable going forward. And I think that's the beauty of the show is that I can't be like, I know, what's going to happen when, like, if you watch the Book of Boba Fett, I know there were a lot of plot points where I was just like, oh, I think I see what's happening here. But with this, it's just like I can't really predict what's going to happen. I think that's the beauty of it. I like not knowing things in certain aspects, and I really have enjoyed that theme of the show of where like you really can't predict what's going to happen next. So
yeah, the proof is in our bingo card. Like almost no spots you can cover.
I can't believe we put Max Rebo on there. I was just doing it as a joke, but
Yeah, okay, yeah, I knew it was a joke, but then it got put on there, and I'm like, it's not gonna. I said, put it as a free space. I mean, come on.
I'm sorry, guys.
What are anybody else's thoughts about the show? This particular episode, I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it. It was certainly interesting, but I was just a bit frustrated because I wanted to hear something of what happened. I feel like they're just dragging that out a little bit too long.
I don't think they're dragging it out too long. I think it's just the formality of and just the mathematics of the episodes being 30 minutes long.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's TV, I understand, but you look at other TV shows. I mean, we always point to House of the Dragon. It looks just so epic and it looks so cinematic in comparison to what we're getting. Yes, they went to locations. They didn't use very much, if at all, stagecraft.
And can I just say that swim didn't look very far?
Yeah,
but the tides, though. I mean, the rip current and all that stuff.
It didn't look that bad.
Huh? Use the force, man. Like.
Well, yeah, exactly. He used the force, yeah. But I mean, still, I mean, Osha doesn't really use the force. She thinks she's still disconnected from it. But then Chimere kind of revealed in this episode that.
Oh, yeah. What
Jedi kind of lied to you
within the force?
Say again?
Huh?
Remember, Chimere said she had a particular power that she was strong with the force.
I think he was referring to like her connection to the force of that she was taught by the Jedi if you stop using the force, it really leaves you in a way.
Yeah, it kind of wanes, it dissipates.
Right. And that's what the Jedi taught her. But in reality, it's like it's still there. Like it absolutely is still there. And as we know now that the force is in all of us. It's in every being in the galaxy. It's just you have to have the discipline and will to use it. And Sabine is a fine example of that because most of us thought, oh yeah, there's no way that she's force sensitive. And then you get to the end of Ahsoka and she's using the force like it's like nothing. And you're just like, well, okay. So Osha still has the force. And I think when she puts the helmet on, which I was like, whoa, like she can't see out of that thing. So I'm really like, Chimere has to be really tied into the force in order not to like, use his actual eyes, but he's using his senses.
Yeah, because it's revealed that his helmet blocks out all the senses except for the force.
Right.
So it's almost like a Daredevil type of aspect that he's kind of channeling in a way where he doesn't see, cool. He just feels. So cool.
Yeah.
There was another part to that article that we were talking about, David, where it talked about that Leslie really liked the idea of being seduced by the dark side.
Yeah, I always thought that was an interesting choice of words when I was a kid. When I learned what that word meant, I was like, wow, that's a very kind of
so I think I think that we'll see more of that aspect with them. Did you feel like she was being seduced by it in this episode? Maybe in a very subtle way.
I mean, she did put the helmet on. So
yeah, there's a question there in her mind.
Yeah, I think she's questioning everything at this. I mean, I think by the helmet's got to smell. Okay. Well, all right. Okay. Well,
Everything's
Mob
got to smell in
rules.
Star Wars. I never see them
I,
take showers.
yeah,
do you?
I was like, okay, mob rules.
Except
okay.
for this episode, we saw him take a dip. I mean, was he gonna?
Yeah,
He got a bar of soap.
I was not expecting that. That was just like I was like, oh, he's just gonna take off his shirt, but then you're just like, oh, okay, all right, okay, this is
He's
this
a
is
Sith man.
This is interesting. Yeah. Oh yeah, because those rules don't apply to Sith. Got it. But no, I just find the whole helmet thing fascinating. So I'm really curious. I'm so curious of what happened from where he lost his way and like how I mean why he is the way that he is now. I really want maybe the last episode to explain that. And Leslie kept saying that there is a lot of stuff from Legends in this, so I'm just like I'm hoping some type of Sith callback to Revan or Bane, like Darth Bane, the founder of the Sith rule of two. Like, just think about it. It would just make sense if he had some type of vision of where he talked to Bane in some way, or maybe found like a Sith holocron or something that ties back to Bane. That would be so cool. Darth Bane would be awesome. So many possibilities.
See, I have a big problem with the rule of two. I have
Okay.
a really big problem with it.
Let's hear
For
it.
me, it doesn't make sense at all. It does
Okay.
not make sense. It's like the Sith are lawless and they're ruleless anyways. I mean, why can't you have more Sith out there? I mean, it feels like it's just like a fallacy, you know?
Well,
we heard it
let's
back
look
in
it up.
episode 1 where Yoda's talking to Mace Windu at the funeral of Qui-Gon, where he says only two there can be. I mean, a master and apprentice. Which one did we kill, the master of the apprentice?
Well, I mean, well, they'll kill each other if there's more, because everybody wants to be the most powerful, and the apprentice always wants to overthrow the master. But we don't know if this is necessarily gonna be a Sith. If they're Knights of the Ren, or they become Knights of the Ren, that could be the power of Manny.
Yeah, let's address this question here. Obi Fluff Kenobi on YouTube says, has Lucasfilm made a clear distinction of how far away in the timeline Acolyte takes place from the prequels? Yes,
it's about 80, yes, it's about so 100 years of where it was
before episode 1, right?
Well, so of where we are in the current timeline of where Chimera is there and stuff like that, that's about 80 something years apparently before the prequels. But the flashback of where it's young Osha and May, that's about 100 years. So
right,
16 years.
So yeah, it's a technical answer there.
Yes. But going back to Darth Bane, with Rule of Two, this is the official like description of why he created the Rule of Two. Darth Bane was disgusted by the Brotherhood of Darkness, which was ruled by the strong, and weaker Sith often teamed up to overthrow the most powerful. Bane destroyed the Brotherhood of Darkness by tricking Sith Lord Skir Khan into using force technique called the Thought Bomb, which wiped out all the Sith and many Jedi. To ensure survival, Bane realized that Sith's greed and infighting had led to their destruction. The Rule of Two would ensure that the Sith committed to serving the dark side and seeking out its ultimate strength. The rule would also allow the Sith to operate the shadows away from the Jedi and amass enough power to eventually destroy the Jedi and the Republic. So that's why the Rule of Two was created.
Right, that's why it was created. But I mean, why can't you have other Sith running around and they just break the Rule of Two? You know, it was not that way for many, many thousands of years. Right. So it's like you said in the past, Colin, someone could find a holocron and a Sith holocron and kind of learn and become like a master. Then they look for an apprentice. But while maybe another master and apprentice are out running around somewhere, I think that to me is where Star Wars really needs to go in the future, and they need to break that, hopefully. But yeah, so William Roberts on YouTube says, think the scars on his back came from the lightsaber. Yeah, we discussed that in the beginning of the show. Definitely. We're thinking Chimera could have been Vernestra Rose apprentice.
It's kind of
and we're gonna learn
sus.
that. Yeah.
No, it's kind of sus. Yeah. What's the small creature's name that kind of looks like a badger? I'm tired. I'm blanking on his name.
Basil.
Basil. Yes.
Basil.
When he was crawling through the ship's like kind of pipes. Sorry. Of when he was crawling through the ship's like kind of vent system. It reminded me of when Yoda was doing that at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Of where he was crawling through. That was the first thing that popped in my head. I don't know where I was going with that. I was just thinking about that, but yeah.
Yeah, so someone had a comment in chat. Here it is. I think I found it. So sick of Basil. The character brings nothing to the story. We already got the cute woodland critters in Return of the Jedi. Maybe we'll get lucky and Chewie will be roasting them over a fire the next time.
Whoa!
So, I mean, Basil is like a quintessential Star Wars character, a light side
What's up with the Basil hate, man? Dang.
Yeah, I know that's pretty wild. I mean,
that's rough.
I mean, it goes back to the tradition of like a Jar Jar Binks to the Ewoks. I mean, this is like quintessential Star Wars. I mean, you look at a character, a creature that you think has nothing to contribute to the situation, but I think Basil is. I mean, there's always that factor that someone that you don't expect, and this is like a life lesson too. I mean, you just don't know the people that you meet in life, how they're going to come into play and actually maybe help you in the end. That's just like basic life right there.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed the character Basil. I'm not obsessed like with him. With I know it was like some fans that were like, oh, he's cute, like, you know, he is like the you know, next cute thing. But I think his character was really cool. But speaking of Basil, how did Basil get all of them to where Kelnaka is? And that was kind of troubling because they had to follow Basil, right? But then
Yord had that piece of Kelnaka's clothing or something, something
right,
that had Kelnaka's scent. So he's essentially like a bloodhound.
Right. So, but with that being said, how did Master Veenstra and her crew get there with no problem? How did they just go in the forest? Because they didn't explain that. They did not say, oh, like, here's like the tracker or like or anything like that. That tracker was on Saul's ship. There was no, as far as I know, there was no tracker that was left with the dead Jedi.
When Venestra was at the scene, she was picking up some of the echoes from the Force, so that he could have been picking those
following
up.
Those. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
That would be my guess.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was plotted. Maybe the Jedi were tracked into there with some kind of trackers, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's something kind of like off screen in a way to give a proper explanation for that. I'm not too worried about that aspect.
But even if the Jedi still had trackers on them, right? The Jedi that were killed,
right?
Maybe, yeah,
they would still have their communicators on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was
either. Something else about the show too is like, this is pretty dark. This is, I mean, and I know a lot of people thought that the show Andor was dark, but this show is pretty dark. Like, they didn't even hesitate, like, with just how they killed people. Like, we saw Yord just get his neck snapped. You're just like, oh, okay, like, this is the route we're going. It's just like, I mean, okay. And the way that Jackie died too, she got stabbed 3 times and like just really quick, and you're just like, wow, all right. And it's just a different route than I thought the show was going to go. I didn't think it was going to be that dark. I knew it was going to be dark in some way, but not to the point of what we've seen so far. So
yeah, I think that that investor call, I think that's what it was with Kathleen Kennedy announcing the Acolyte. They said the viewpoint of the dark side. So I immediately thought it was going to be ultra dark, but then I thought, well, how is Disney going to pull that off? You know,
yeah.
I mean, you're going to have to like maybe curtail that a little bit, but now it's getting really dark, like you just said, with the head snap, the neck snap there. But yeah, I just want to shout out here William Roberts on YouTube. He's new to this channel. He subscribed. Thank you so much, William, for subscribing. I'm glad you're along for the ride.
And I guess this isn't the first time that we saw like a next step in Star Wars, just because of it was in Obi-Wan of where Darth Vader was going through like that village right before like he starts to fight Obi-Wan for the first time, and he just pulls that random villager and he just kind of just does the one hand of using the Force, and he snaps that guy's neck. Sorry guys, my throat just got really dry. Oh. But yeah,
it happens. It happens. Moose Soup Yoda on YouTube says, pretty sure Vernestra went to investigate because she's somehow involved. May the Force be with you all. Have a great 4th of July run. Thank you so much, Moose Soup Yoda. Thank you for all your contribution in the comments. It's been great. And he says also with Chimere, maybe as her past Padawan. I think that's the popular theory now that, yeah, with the light whip, I mean, it's all kind of coming together with the big scar on his back. Chimere's kind of just disenfranchised with the Jedi, and it's revealed that he is a former Jedi and he's lived for a while. Same thing with Vernestra Rowe. She seems like she's the most leaning towards like manipulation and subterfuge as anyone that we've ever experienced as a Jedi. So,
Yep. Well, I mean, there's 2 episodes left. Hard to believe. How do you finish up this series or season?
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because either May or Osha are turned to the dark side, or they're not. And in which case, what was this series really about?
right.
If
yeah,
right, because if something has to happen with one of them, like in other words, some kind of future, they can't both. If they both die,
right.
What was the point of?
I've got a theory, is that Chimere is going to really get to Osha, and then maybe Saul confessing everything maybe changes the way that May thinks, just the way that Chimere is doing the same with Osha. They both reunite, and then Osha's gonna be like, I'm so sorry I started the fire and killing you and stuff. I just want us to be sisters. And then May, by doing that, of being insecure about that, gets off her guard, and then Osha's like, I need to kill my past, and she kills May. And then you're just like, whoa, and then that starts the dark path of Osha going forward.
See,
I
don't
could see
think
something
the
happening like
fire thing, the whole thing with the fire,
yeah,
I think it was started by May, but it was very, very much exacerbated via some other means, maybe through the Jedi, maybe through something else. But I don't think the fire. 'Cause I think there is something to that. I don't think that little like.
I think you're missing the point of what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that May's gonna like apologize for any wrongdoing that she has done towards Osha, and she's gonna be like, maybe she will be like Padme at the end of Revenge of the Sith of just being like, I just want us to move on. I don't want us to fight anymore. I want us to be together. And that's going to have her guard down. And then that's when Osha is corrupted by Chimere. And then she's like, I don't care. And she's blinded by her hate and everything from what happened when she was a kid, because that was her perspective of what Soul told her and what, she saw from her point of view. And then she kills May in the process. I think that would be a really interesting take on their relationship. And then also her character going forward. I think if Osha kills May, I think that would be a really good plot point going forward, just because of Chimere wants that pupil. So if he gets Osha for a little bit, I mean, I think that would be really, interesting going forward. But that's just a theory I have. That's just a prediction, but I could see that happening.
I could see that, because if they really want to go into season 2, I don't think they want Amanda Stenberg acting 2 roles again. I mean, I think that's super taxing.
Yeah.
And it would just make it easier.
That one of them meets their fate before the finale. Right?
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good prediction that it's probably going to be May. I kind of agree with Colin there.
Yeah.
But the whole fire thing, I think that's a little Rashomon-y.
Yeah, I mean, I just forget I said that because that's the thing that you're focusing on. But
well, I mean, that's the thing that a lot of people talk about, and a lot of people like have like a lot of arguments about, like, oh, fire can't burn concrete or whatever. That's the argument I hear. But
you can't put logic into Star Wars. You just can't.
Right. But I mean, there's certain, but I mean, there has to be a little, like, you can't put Earth logic into Star Wars, but I think there has to be proper reasoning. And there's to be
fire in space, there's gravity in space, there's sound in space, like it's just like you just can't. It's in its own thing. But going back to with Ocean and everything is that I
Moose
think
has a good point there, by the way.
Maybe she's the Jedi they kill without a weapon by turning her. When you say she, do you mean Osha or do you mean May?
Good question. But it's like what Vader says. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did.
I did. Yeah.
So maybe he's thinking along those lines.
Well, I would love to see Osha with a red lightsaber, and one way to get that. Okay, so they meant Osha. So if Osha does kill May, I think that if she does it with a lightsaber, and maybe she does it with, like, maybe Soul's lightsaber or something, then that's a way to bleed your crystal. In order to bleed your crystal, you have to kill someone out of anger or something in the lines of that. And if I'll look that up just to confirm, but I'm pretty sure one way to bleed your crystal is to do it out of anger and the way of the dark side. And if Osha does that,
lightsaber though at this point,
well, she could take someone's lightsaber. She could take, Soul's lightsaber or something, or or some other Jedi around her. But because we've never seen it on screen before, we've never seen someone bleed a Jedi crystal red. So seeing that on screen would be really, really cool to see. Because
if anything,
we've only seen that in the comics.
I feel like we don't have time with 2 episodes left to see that because we have so much backstory to cover. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like that in the season 2.
Maybe we see that in the beginning of season 2. The only worry I have right now is that season 2 hasn't been confirmed yet.
Yeah.
That's my only worry.
Numbers on the show. David, David, is that something you're up on? How the numbers are, the viewers?
I know the premiere was pretty good. I haven't seen anything on the numbers. All the media right now online is dominated by all the review bombing they're doing to it, and it makes no sense at all. And it's like, well, I mean, it's kind of one of those catch-22 type things, because it's like you're making this for the fans, but a lot of fans are rejecting it, and I think it's a minority that are review bombing, but I mean, they're making the loudest noise about it, and Disney, of course, sees that, and they're all in the process of making more quality over quantity. So are they going to want to invest in a show that so many people are just hating on? Like the large voices, there's a lot of voices out there that hate the show, and it's like, well, I mean, it's kind of undue, but I mean, it is what it is.
So going back to my kyber crystal thing, is the way to make a kyber crystal bleed is when you use negative emotions like rage, hate, fear, and pain are poured into it using the dark side of the Force. This process turns the crystal crimson, which is the same color of I believe what we see Balin, Skull, and Shin have in Ahsoka, and or red, which is a distinctive feature of the lightsabers used by dark side attempts. But yeah,
right. So you don't necessarily have to kill that person who has that lightsaber. You can just take the crystal and just bleed it.
So all right, with 2 episodes left, you have to think about we're gonna see some kind of finality to the season with May and Osha and Sal, but now we're gonna see a backstory what happened on Brendock. I think we're gonna see a backstory of what happened with Chimere
Little
and
Chimere.
and maybe Vernestra. I mean, I think we all
That would be really cool to see a young Vernestra. Maybe we go back into the High Republic, the height of it. That would be
I would
cool.
love that.
Maybe that's where they spend all the money.
Where is Stellan Geos? Like,
so.
where's I would
With
love to
all
see that.
these things to do,
Buriaga.
and
Yeah,
possibly at the very end, maybe even see a different Sith Lord like Plagueis, or who's the other Sith they think? Tenebrous. So it feels like we got to get that stuff before
Teenage Yoda.
Teenage Yoda. So I feel like we got a lot to still see.
There's a lot of ground to cover. I just hope the next episodes aren't 38 minutes long.
It would be nice to see.
What if we got like a movie as the last episode, like an hour and 50-minute long episode?
Give me an hour. I mean, give me like 52 minutes and I'll be fine.
I think
with that last episode, just give me something longer than
footage.
38. Yes, of actual footage, not credits, because of even this last one wasn't 38 minutes long. I felt like there was like 6 minutes of credits or something like that this time, and I was like, come on. So
yeah, I feel like that's one of the biggest frustrations with the Star Wars show is the episodes are just too short.
They're not long enough. I felt like the ones from the Mandalorian were longer, and from Book of Boba and even Ahsoka, those episodes were a lot longer. I know episode 5 of Ahsoka was about. Was it episode 5, the one with Anakin?
Shadow Warrior?
Yeah, I think that one was about like 52 minutes long or something on the lines of that. That episode was almost an hour, and that episode was just beautiful. So
I would like to see them, they have the money, and if they want to get people really excited about the show, make these episodes a little bit longer,
Do you guys want me to share headline quotes about upcoming episodes? Joseph?
I think that's essentially all that's in that Inverse article that you sent earlier, Craig.
Okay.
They're a little spoilery, but they're not too bad. I just kind of read like a little paragraph earlier that we're going to get more lightsaber stuff, but I think that's kind of what we're assuming. So.
Yeah. Oh man.
So ratings for this episode. What do you rate the episode, Craig?
Give me a moment.
Yeah.
Colin, what do you rate it?
I'm gonna give it a solid 8. A solid 8. Craig, your rating don't base it off of like, okay, it's like it didn't give me what I wanted near the end. I wanted like 6 more minutes left. Give it to what we actually got. Take that part aside and give it a rating.
It's tough because it felt frustrating not to get that last little bit. Probably, maybe if I'm generous, a 7.
Okay.
But for me, that frustration of just, it feels like you're just dragging this out a little too long. I really want to give it a 6.5. For what we saw, I really liked, but it just felt frustrating that they wouldn't just give us a little taste of what's to come. It just felt a little too frustrating for me.
I think they did. I think they did give us a taste of what's to come next, because we have the whole line of where
I meant to say like a taste of what happened. I would have liked to at least hear part of what Saul had to say.
Okay.
That was my only frustration. Other than that, I really enjoyed the episode.
I kind of, well, to me, that hinted at, because if we started talking about it, that would kind of ruin the flashbacks. I don't want him to do that. I would rather see the actual flashbacks and instead of him talking about what actually happened. And that's basically what we're getting in this next episode, most likely, is where he's going to be, we're going to be seeing it happen, but that's going to be Saul telling May what actually happened.
Out of all the episodes so far, I've given 8, 9. No, 8, 9. I think this is all my ratings have been super high. I don't think I've given anything under an 8 other than this. And I really liked the episode. It was just getting frustrating to me because it was like, come on, just tell us at this point. It's making me nuts.
Yeah. Well, again, I think you're going to be impressed with the next episode because I think it's going to be exactly what you're talking about now. You're just not getting it now. You'll be getting it next week. And I think that's your thing right now. It's like you want it now. So just wait, man.
I really like where they were going with it. It was just, I feel like, again, the length of the episode should be a little bit longer, in my opinion, to keep.
Sounds a lot like Darth Craig to me. Oh. So
Darth Craig the Wise.
Darth Craig the Wise.
Do it.
So I think. What was that, Craig?
It is unavoidable.
It is unavoidable. I am Craig.
I want that apprentice, not excuses.
Do it.
Give me my apprentice, my young Disney Plus.
You just sound like an old man. You don't sound like the Emperor. You're just like, where's my orange slices? Like these.
Where are my orange slices? You know I need my vitamin C.
All right, David, what's your rating?
All right, so I think I give it a solid 8.5. I like the character development, the character interactions. I think Chimere is moving up the list of favorite Star Wars characters.
Yeah, no,
I like the look of him. I mean, that's a big part. Aesthetics is a big part of Star Wars. He's got the red blade. We got a better look at his lightsaber. It looks really cool. I kind of want it now. I already pre-ordered the helmet on Hasbro Pulse. Yeah. So
it was written well. Yeah, it was just.
Man. He just sent those killing it, man. He's doing his thing, and we're kind of seeing the somewhat predictable thing where Ocean may kind of do the big flip flop. Yeah. Possibly that seems like that's coming, but then Soul is looking more suspicious. Same thing with Vernestra. That's looking kind of odd there. That's not the traditional thing we've seen with Jedi, but that's great. It's something different. It's something new. I think it's being played off really well. And it looks like we got some ratings out here on YouTube, and I'll put them up here. So Joseph Ricci on YouTube says 0 for this one. Rayla was horrible the first time. Second time was unbearable. So I guess he's thinking Osha or May is going to have some type of relationship with Chimere. I think that's what he's guessing.
I don't think that, but again,
I don't think that's going to happen. But
but again, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Yeah. And
So Moose Soup Yoda on YouTube says 9 out of 10. We learned more about Chimere, still dancing with Soul about his past, but loving the light whip. I knew immediately once she said she was going to go out there, I was like, we're going to get some light whip action. But unfortunately, it was only the stuff that we've seen in the marketing.
Yeah. No. I saw the kind of area where she was walking. I'm like, we are totally getting that trailer shot right now. And then sure enough, it was the exact trailer shot that we got. There was nothing more. I don't think we're going to see much more of her use a lightsaber whip until maybe the end, but I don't know even how much of that we're going to see. But with her, oh man, it's really interesting because in the books and the comics and everything, she is this very adventurous Jedi and stuff, but now that she's older, she's changed a lot. But her kind of maybe leaning towards a darker path is going to be really interesting, just because we do know so much about her from the books and in the comics and everything. So if she does go down the dark path, it's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, Obi Fluff Kenobi on YouTube says 7. We got a better glimpse at Osha, May, Chimere.
Yeah.
And Moose Soup Yoda on YouTube says, gotta love any episode that brings Legends content into canon.
Yeah.
In parentheses, cortosis, which also sounds like the throat infection Palps has.
So we actually found out about cortosis, not this episode. He did say it by name in this episode, but we
Yes.
knew it was cortosis from the the official Star Wars social media pages, because they explained and everything of what cortosis was and why his helmet and his that. So it is yeah, no, I love it when they do that. I hope they bring more stuff from Legends and into canon, you know. Hoping for Darth Bane, and they talk about the rule of 2. I would really, really love that. Even though Darth Bane is technically canon because we got him in that episode of Clone Wars. But I would really, really love for them to talk more about Darth Bane. Maybe even Darth Raven, or, you know, of Darth Malak. But it would be very, very cool to see.
Yeah. And then Noah says 5. This episode did not contribute anything to the overall story. I don't know if he's joking here, but
yeah, I was going to be like, what? This really helped the story go forward. But okay.
Yeah, I mean, we get to find out Kymir was a former Jedi. We get to see that he really wanted Osha over May. Apparently, looks like.
Could Kymir be lying though? Could he just been saying stuff to maybe relate to Osha? Like,
he did say you shouldn't trust me, basically.
Yeah. So he could be lying. That's why we're all thinking like, oh, like, you know, it could be like his former of Master Vernstruck could be, you know, of his old master. You know, all of us are thinking it'd be because of the marks on his back, but it could be something totally different, and he could just be lying, because Sith are known to lie just to get, you know, where they want to go. So it could be tricking the audience. Again, the show has been unpredictable for the most part. So this could be another, you know, way of doing that to us. So who knows?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks for everyone that joined tonight, everyone in chat, Obi Fluff Kenobi, to Noah Richer, Hungry Han Solo, Perp, TJ, who basically let us know that he's in the UK and the shows don't come on until 8 a.m. Thanks for letting us know. I wasn't aware of that.
Well,
yeah, Moose Soup Yoda, Noah Richer. I'm probably repeating some names, but Martin out there, Mob Rules, who's been a supporter for us for so many years now. William Roberts, who joined YouTube tonight, he subscribed. And Joseph Ricci.
Wait, what?
Our Patreon. Join our Patreon, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have the means to.
In a beg, and I don't want to see that. Okay.
I will say,
if you want to do the Patreon, at least write us a nice review on iTunes. Can you please? Otherwise, I have to write another one, and David will yell at me again.
I will say I do appreciate TJ coming on to our streams, though, even though he hasn't watched it. I think that's great, because it just shows that he supports us. So you know what, TJ, thank you. But really, just watch the episode. Just
well, I mean, he's gonna eventually see it, but
yeah, I know. I just feel bad when we talk about it like before he sees it. No.
Yeah, and definitely I want to. So Hollier, before we go, he says, I guess is that.
I don't know what that means.
Is that maybe like an emoji he's creating, or is he saying it's a 9 for this episode?
I think
9 out of 10. I don't know.
I think that's what he's saying.
Or 900 town.
Do not show that comment from Noah, because that is going to trigger. Stop it. No, we don't need that. We don't need it. No, Craig, don't say anything. Don't give in.
Well, hey, I mean, if we get another Patreon subscriber, I think it's worth it.
There's not enough money to make me do that.
Craig, just stop, man. Just stop.
We're going to get that contraption from like the Clockwork Orange to like have Craig's eyes open and to watch in a big room.
My eyelids will crush it.
Just,
it's like the cartoons with the toothpicks where they try and make your eyes open. My eyelids
Craig.
Ow!
Okay. All right.
And Martin Lou says, good theory session. I'm ready to see what they're cooking. Like, come on. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks for joining, Martin. Yeah. So I just also want to say these past 2 weekends have been an incredible experience and success for the Star Wars Stuff podcast at Superhero Comic-Con. And this last weekend in the Dallas area at Rebel Scum Con. Met a lot of awesome creators. I'll put them up on the screen. There's Darth Jar Jar. I think he
Oh,
actually
I didn't
sent
see
me.
that one. That's awesome.
I sent it to you.
You did not send me the Jar Jar one. I saw every single other one except that one. That's sick.
Okay. Yeah. Gabe from Star Wars Replicas. He met us at our booth. There's our booth there.
Nice.
Our humble little booth. Evan Witten, who's Jason Sandula on Ahsoka, he showed up to the booth. That was awesome.
Oh,
I met a couple of
there.
really cool Star Wars fans that were very, very sophisticated, and we had a nice conversation. And they cosplayed as Leia and Ahsoka the first day. This was the second day, and they're like, "How do you want us to pose?" And I'm like, "Do whatever you want." And so they clashed sabers, and I took the picture right at that moment.
That's so cool.
Desert Rose cosplay. She was Slave Leia, and we had a long conversation at my booth too. She might be at SpaceCon with us. Also, a stormtrooper from Ahsoka, one of the
That looks
undead
awesome.
stormtroopers. Yeah, he
Yeah.
had the green lights in his eyes. He actually won the cosplay contest. And the
Oh, I bet.
actor that was in there in the physical Snoke costume for I believe The Last Jedi and possibly The Force Awakens. So yeah, it was awesome. We had dinner. He was really awesome. Great guy to talk to. He wants to be on the podcast. So a lot to look forward to. I met Ahmed Best and I met Misty Rosas, and they were awesome. Hopefully they can be on the podcast at some point. Ahmed Best is seriously very busy in his life. He's actually a teacher, and he teaches and I think he's a professor at USC. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, I had no idea, man. So yeah, that's pretty impressive. So thank you to everyone, like I said in chat. Thank you to everyone that listens to us on the podcast apps. And he's asking No Richer on YouTube, will y'all be reviewing the new Inquisitor comic from Marvel that's debuting tomorrow?
I'm gonna say that's gonna be Zach.
Yeah. So lots to look forward to. Thank you everyone for joining, and we will be back. I think maybe not tomorrow, but the day after with like a breakdown and Easter egg review of episode 6. So look forward to that. We'll see you again next Tuesday for the pre-show and post-show like we always do. And for Colin, Craig 5, my name's David, and may the force be with you.
And also with you.
Max Rebo lives.
Not on the bingo card, but
Oh. Any day now.